This is Wholesaling Houses Elite, the no fluff and BS podcast with tips and tricks to help you become an elite wholesaler. Our guest will spill the beans on what it takes to be the best.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Before we get started on today's podcast, I want to introduce you to today's sponsor. It's YellowLetterHQ.com. Now, I'm going to say it very slow so you can write it down. YellowLetterHQ.com. If you're doing direct mail, this is a no-brainer. They're number one in customer service. They get their letters out absolutely fast. And I personally know the guy Todd over there, and he's awesome. So if you're doing direct mail and you want innovative postcards and mailers that work, make sure you go visit YellowLetterHQ.com. and enjoy this podcast. Hey, what's up? Welcome to Wholesaling Houses Elite podcast. And with me today is actually somebody that is in a mastermind with me. And like I said before, I'm bringing people that you don't have access to. I'm bringing you access to them. Right now, we got Robert Stafford. And I said that right? Your last name? Close enough, right?
Close enough.
Stafford. I'm bad with names and spelling. That's why you don't have to be smart to be in this business. Robert is in Tampa. He does business in multiple markets, and I actually use one of his products that he has on a day-to-day basis. And you guys out there in YouTube world and podcast world hear me talking about it all the time. It's called list stacking. And how do you list stack? Well, Robert had that problem. He created a solution for it, but we'll get to that later. Right now, we want to talk about Robert's business. So introduce yourself, Robert. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Yes, I am in sunny Florida, Robert Seifert. I operate a business called USA Portfolio Real Estate. And of course, we'll get later to the software side of the business and the new passion that is spun off of real estate. But yeah, we operate, born and raised in Michigan. Started real estate there, did hundreds of transactions in that state and still do. Also own a property management company there. Mm-hmm. And then moved to Tampa, Florida, almost a few years ago now, and started operating in this market as well. And we're kind of venturing our feet into some other markets as we speak, between wholesaling and doing turnkey rentals. And most of our expansion is turnkey rentals.
Yeah, I personally want to talk to you more about the turnkey rental side, just because I'm exploring some of that stuff myself. But let's go back to when you started. Did you start in real estate as a broker? I see you talk about you have a property management. Did you get into it on the sales side of things?
So yeah, I personally don't have a broker's license. I've never been a licensed agent. Have no interest in becoming one. My background is actually in sales and finance, and I was licensed in that industry, and that kind of gives me a reason why I don't want to get licensed. Yeah. I don't like all the regulation, the documents and all that. Nothing wrong with it. It's for people. I have brokers that license our stuff, which is better for me than me having to personally be. But yeah, I started with, it was literally, I probably like a lot of people, studied and read books, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, went to his courses, paid, studied for over 10 years. Probably knew more about real estate than anybody I saw doing real estate. And then one day just said, why am I not just doing real estate? How about I just do it, right? And take action. Quit my job in the finance world and went all in. And took off, mostly wholesale in the beginning. And then after about a year and a half of wholesaling, realized that the majority of them were rental properties anyways. And I accidentally became a property manager because I ended up managing properties for one of the biggest buyers we were selling to. Mm-hmm. And that all evolved into, getting into the turnkey industry. We actually I think our best month was 32 wholesales in 1 month. Wow. And we averaged like 20.
And this was in the Michigan market.
Yeah.
Now, what part of Michigan? Because I know that plays an important part on the type of deals you're getting. What part of Michigan are you working in, or were you working in?
Still operate there in what's called the Metro Detroit market, which is essentially, everyone knows the city of Detroit. So we do operate in parts of the city itself. There are good parts, believe it or not. Don't let the news fool you. But mostly in the suburbs that surround the city of Detroit. So there's a lot of little tiny suburban areas where you can still get really good price to rent ratios and lower price under 100K homes kind of thing.
Okay.
For those flippers that love those areas.
So you were in you were in the Detroit metro area. How did you? I said so. You got started with Rich Dad Poor Dad. Is that the basis of it?
Yeah, I mean, Rich Dad Poor Dad was most everything I learned in real estate, right? Did the cash flow game, went to his course. I did all that in like 2008, but I didn't actually, I toyed around with some real estate, tried to, that didn't work. But I actually got started in real estate in like full-time 2013. So it wasn't until like 5 years after reading all those books, studying all those things. I just watched some friends like, if you guys can do this and you don't know anything I know, am I not just doing real estate, right? Like, I've read enough books. Like, I kept thinking that I needed to know more. Like, I didn't know enough, right? And I think you too, right? We both see it on Facebook all the time. People ask, well, what does this contract have to say? What extra language do I have to have in it? Yet they've not even done a deal. It doesn't matter. Most of that doesn't matter. Just do it. Go try and do a deal, and you'll learn way more than anything you're going to read.
I think we call that analysis paralysis. And
yes,
I more tell everybody, listen, take action and just learn from your mistakes, because I guarantee you, as much business as you have drum up and as much of it, I make mistakes every day. I learn something from something new. I'm just now getting into subject twos, which I should have been doing, when I first started, but I'm making mistakes every day. And that's what everybody should go out and do. Learn enough to get started, make mistakes, know that these mistakes necessarily not going to put you in jail. You're going to be fine. If anything, you're just going to lose money.
Yes. And probably not much.
Exactly.
I mean, your deposit, and you could give a $10 deposit if you want to. That's legal. And I get it. You should learn some basics. Don't get me wrong. But really the basics you should learn is, how do I market? How do I let people know that I'm doing something? Because really, we're in the real estate business, but we're truly in the marketing business. If we're not marketing, we're not doing any business.
And I think that's kind of entrepreneurship in a general. Like, you're in a sector, you could be selling cars, you could be, even a hospital is the marketing business, because you see billboards and now the ER wait time is 3 minutes, and like, who cares? Like, so if you don't understand the simple marketing and who your target audience is, in any business, especially this real estate wholesaling business, you're not going to flourish because you don't know who to tell your marketing to or what marketing to put out. So that's a very important part. Very, very important. So you are now living in Tampa. You're still doing deals in Detroit, and you're doing deals in Tampa as well. What does your business look like now? Like, you still doing a lot of wholesale, and you talked about turnkey. Can you explain what a turnkey is? Because a lot of people that listen to my channel are brand new.
Okay. So I'm going to give my definition of turnkey.
Yeah.
And there's definitely a misuse of the term in the industry. The misuse is a lot of people just say something's turnkey because there's a tenant. I completely disagree with that statement. Actually, there's probably more problems with that than what a real turnkey is. So a real turnkey is someone or a company or organization. Like, we have, a company, and we also have a management company. So we have all of it. We've purchased the property. We've completely renovated it to a certain and high level standard, basically meaning that everything's been replaced or new kitchens, new bathrooms, new flooring, new paint. Everything's updated and then put on the market to find and place a qualified tenant that is then cash flowing and under professional property management. And then sold to an investor who is looking to add to their portfolio. So that, to me, is true turnkey, right? What's sold on the market, a lot of people, turnkey rental. All they're doing is wholesaling a rental property. That's not turnkey, right? Like, it's been rented for 5 years, and you have no idea if the tenant's qualified or not. You don't know when the last time anything in the house was updated. It probably currently needs repairs. That's not turnkey, but a lot of people use that. To me, that's just another wholesale. You're wholesaling a rental.
So let me understand this. So you're using your wholesale marketing skills. You're finding these properties that the area and can produce a good return on investment for rent. Yes. You're going in, you're fixing up these properties so that the investor that's buying from you doesn't have to replace the roof, the plumbing, and you're making it somewhat rent safe by putting rent safe material in properties, right?
Yes.
And then you're selling these properties with a tenant, qualified tenant in it, with a property management already in place. So it's essentially an investor's taking money from the bank that's earning absolutely nothing and putting it into a rental property that is earning them a percentage? And what do you try to shoot for in the Detroit market that is just like you can't go wrong? What is your average when you try to pass it on? Your average
Yeah,
ROI?
we try to be somewhere between 12 and 15%
Okay.
ROI. And that's after, just so we can clarify that, because a lot of people use different math for that too. It's taking 20% off of your annual. So take your annual gross rent minus 20%. That's going to cover your property management fees, your future potential maintenance, which should be lower in the beginning, and your future vacancy rates, because even though it's rented today, there's going to be a point where it's going to need to be re-rented. Somebody's going to move out, somebody else is going to move in. And then we minus taxes and insurance. We divide that by the purchase price, and we shoot to be somewhere between 12 and 15%.
So I'm taking notes because I'm actually wanting to learn more about the turnkey side. So you're saying you renovate a property, you put a tenant in it, and you take the yearly gross rent, you minus 20% taxes and insurance, and that gives you what
that gives you your net rent.
Got it.
Right. So you'll end up with your net annual rent at that point. That's how much you should anticipate being able to make after all fees and expenses. And then divide that into either the percentage you want to make, and you'll know the most you could pay, or divide that into the price you're paying. That will give you the percentage that you're going to make on that property.
Got it. So so explain why investors buy turnkey rentals. What sense does it make?
Yeah, the sense, and I come from a finance background, right? So I'm used to dealing with the stock market and annuities and different things that are out there. Most investors that we find that are buying turnkey rentals, and why I got into it was because of the finance world too, right? Is put your money in the bank. I mean, I think my interest on a statement I had last month was like a nickel in interest. So you don't really, there's really no interest in banks nowadays. It's very safe. So if you're looking, I'm not going to lose my money in my bank per se. There's nothing that could really go wrong technically. Then you have the opposite side of that. Like if I want to make over 10%, historically the stock market is where I'm going to do that. I have the potential to make a 10% return over the history, right? But there's a lot of risk in that. I mean, depending on where the market is today or tomorrow is the value of my money. So real estate is a lot. We see a lot of investors just because, especially ever since the crash of '08 for the stock market, I think people woke up and said, oh my God, all this money I put in here that I thought I had forever. I mean, my parents fell into that, right? Like, luckily I worked in finance at the time. So half of their money was in some guaranteed investments. The other half of their money, they lost more than half of it. And it took several years for that to recoup. But if they needed it right then, there would have been no recoup. They would have just lost it. Versus real estate, number one, is a tangible asset. You can actually go look at it, feel it, see it. It's real, right? It's not just paper asset per se. And it is, someone always has to have somewhere to live. So from a rental perspective, there's always going to be, it's easier to keep a renter. So it's going to cash flow. If the market goes down, the renter's still paying rent, or somebody's going to pay rent, right? If the market goes up, okay, that doesn't really matter either. I mean, it could, but it matters less because someone's still paying rent. So it's not guaranteed, right? Because what could go wrong? A tenant could leave. A tenant needs to move. As long as you mitigate those things, like have property management that knows how to professionally place a new tenant when the one's gone. Oh, they could damage your home. That's why you have homeowners insurance, so that you can make a claim against your insurance and repair the damages. I mean, almost everything that could go wrong with a rental property, there is a way to mitigate those losses or potential risk. So for me, and most of the investors we deal with, it's just it's a better way of making a more stable return. And more predictable, that they know if they put their money there, odds are over the years it's going to make the money. And we're not even talking about the return that you're getting from depreciation, appreciation, the tax benefits, right? We don't even calculate that into our offer because that's just bonus. It depends on your situation.
Now, as far as I know, we're going off on this turnkey thing more probably for me than my audience, but it's another way to put your wholesaling marketing to use, because you're finding these properties, and versus giving them away, you can go out and find private money to help you fix these and sell them at a profit.
Yeah.
And I think it's fascinating. Where do you usually find somebody that is a turnkey buyer?
So the biggest buyers, and we buy in the Midwest, so most of the properties that have the great deals are in the Midwest. Most of our buyers are just regular people that are working at a corporate type job, have money saved up. Ironically, I'd say that the majority of our buyers are either international, they're overseas and they want their money in America where it produces way better than anything they got over there. Or the majority of them we see in the West Coast, either like California and Texas are actually the biggest two markets of where our buyers come from.
Where you can't,
they just can't get those kind of returns.
You can't buy a trash can you can't buy a house on fire for $50,000 in LA, in anywhere.
And you can get good turnkey at like the 8% mark too. So there's a difference, right? If you're going to get around 50 to 70K price points, you're going to get the 12 to 15% returns. Technically considered a little higher risk because the neighborhoods are not as high rent versus the $150,000 house. You could get 7-8% returns. So one is a very more cash flow, higher return potential play. The other one is I could bank leverage it, and I have potential for more equity, right? But the higher priced homes also have more risk with the up and down of the market, because those neighborhoods will go down in value when the market tanks, and they'll go up in value when the market comes up. Versus like when you get into the under 100,000, especially around the 50 to 70 range, these markets really don't fluctuate. So if the market goes up, they don't really go up in value, and if the market goes down, they don't really go down in value. But the cash flow stays pretty steady.
Yeah, and that's important. How many traditional wholesale deals are you doing now a month between the two cities?
Well, we've actually just downsized, but that's because of the software and everything else I'm doing. So we're probably averaging somewhere between 5 and 10.
Yeah.
I mean, we've done way more, but
yeah, and that's good. I mean, you're talking to people right now that need to get their first one and understand that if they can get one a month, that replaces their traditional W-2 income. And that's, I mean, and that's kind of where I got started. Yeah, I lucked up my first month and made $21,000 on 2 deals, but it doesn't happen like that for everybody. And I know back then, if you could have told me I could make $7,000 every month wholesaling, I would tell you were lying. And now we're touching $100,000 every month. So it's a mindset thing, man. It's so crazy. But let's get into some of the stuff that you've created that I use personally. And I'll kind of give you the reason why, let you explain why you created it. But first I want to talk about it. It's the property list manager, right?
Yep.
And I'm going to put a link below this video and in the show notes so people can go on there and try it. Now, what is the cost for this thing?
So property list manager currently is $99 a month for 100,000 property addresses.
$100. Now, let me guys explain. So I do this thing in my business called list stacking. And as you get bigger and you buy more lists and you create more lists, you're going to find out why this is important. So I'll do something like I'll pull the tax delinquent list. I'll go out and pull the code violation list. I'll pull all my probates. I have another list that I put in there. I won't reveal what the list is, but we all got those type of lists, right? So we grab all of our pain point lists that that somebody traditionally, if they're under this type of duress, they should be willing to sell. And you upload these lists in Property List Manager. And if you upload the same address twice, no matter if it's whatever list it's on, it's going to tell you that this person shows up on 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 of your list, giving you a more sniper chance to reach the right person. Now, a lot of people know my business. I do not direct mail. I make phone calls. So what I do is in these phone call situations, I give the better cold caller or the more efficient cold caller these leads because these show more pain points than the ones that we're just calling that are 55 plus with high equity, because these persons are on 5 lists. Now, I've gave my explanation of how I use it. I don't know if that was truly how it was intended to, and I know there's way more. I probably use 20% of what it used, but I know there's so much more. Tell me why you created it and what it actually is supposed to do.
Yeah, so the number one thing we created it for was list stacking, so that you could highly target. The theory being, and someone actually tested it because we just gave the speech at another mastermind, me and Joseph. So Joseph Joseph Taylor and our other mastermind, he actually approached us because of our other software about having someone that would create this. And this is a guy who spent $600,000 last year in direct mail.
He's not joking.
$600,000 in direct mail. And literally in another mastermind we're members of together, he literally just said, and he's tried for a year to create a software that would do this, that would clean up his data. He said, I know that I'm wasting money on mailing bad addresses. I'm wasting money on mailing the same address multiple times because they're on multiple lists and I just don't know it, right? And wasting money on some other things. So he brought us the idea and we built it. The number one, the couple number most important things were, one, stacking. So you take a property address and it may show up 10 different times, right? But when you stack it, now it shows up once and you know it's on 10 different pain point lists. So I can get very sniper targeted, right? So that was one of the number one things. The other thing that it does, and now we've added to it, you're right. I probably only use 20% of it at this point because it's gone crazy with how much it does. But the other main point of it was that it didn't allow duplicates. So you could take all your addresses and dump them in there, and then it takes the property address, matches it, and if it's on a different list, it lets you know that. But if it showed up 10 times on one list, it only counts as one address. And now you're not mailing the same property address owner 10, 20, 30 times and wasting all that money. So those are the main things. Since that inception of the system, though, we've now added where as soon as you import your list, it validates all property and mailing addresses for CAS validation. So it's removing any bad data you have that's not even mailable. It USPS vacancy checks the entire database. Yeah, when you load it, and then the other cool thing, and it'll be in your dashboard soon too, hopefully this week. We re-vacancy check every single month. The USPS updates their data. We re-poll all of the addresses you have in your database, and we flag anything that's newly vacant that wasn't vacant before. And you're actually going to get a thing in your dashboard that tells you that was done. And then there's a million other things you can do now, like all kinds of filtering, and digit filtering, and ways to filter your data. We had a guy that went and checked. We said, I bet you that if you went and looked at all your past sales that you did deals on, that person that you actually did a deal with was on 2 or more lists, right? We had a guy in another mastermind went and tested. He pulled all of their data for the 100 deals they did last year. Every 100% of their deals were on 2 or more lists out of the 100 deals they did. So he looked at, they have 110,000 addresses in our system. Only 9,000 of those addresses are addresses that are on 2 or more lists. So instead of him mailing 100,000 pieces a month, now he only has to mail 9,000. Joseph's the perfect example. We're going to do a strategy session on this coming up soon. He went from 600,000 in spend last year, now dumping, I think he had like 3 million addresses he dumped into the system, ended up with 800,000 addresses because of all the duplication. And now he's mailed 30% of what he spent this year. So he's 70% less spend so far this year and making the same amount of money.
And see, that's what's important in this business. I mean, you always have to check when somebody says, listen, we make X amount of dollars a month wholesaling properties. It's a simple thing my mom used to say all the time. It's not how much money you make, it's how much you keep, right? And that's what's important. If you want to give yourself the competitor's advantage as much as possible, and I know this sounds like a sales pitch, but I only bring stuff to people that I'm actually using, because if you can put 100,000 names in there and statistical data tells you that every deal you've done, these people have been on 2 or more lists, you can narrow your cold calling, which I'm at, or even mailing down to that small amount to where you're now snipering. You're no longer there with a machine gun trying to shoot everybody. You're at these simple 9,000 people out of 100,000 list, and those are the people you focus on because that's where the money is. That's where your money is. And I think, and then another feature is everybody always talks about the vacant list, and people can't get it. It's hard to get. It's almost impossible to get unless you really, really know how to go around it. If you upload, and we'll talk about this more in depth, if you upload 100,000 names, 10,000 addresses, it's going to tell you which ones the United States Postal Service says nobody lives there.
Yep.
And when I was direct mailing, when I first started, when I thought I had the budget to do it, I did not know that the United States Postal Service, that if you send a piece of mail and it's a bad address, that they don't actually try to deliver it. They have a list of houses that they have marked vacant and over the time, and they won't even try to attempt to deliver it. They'll just mark it non-deliverable so they don't waste their time, and it's efficient. But having access to that list, which your software does, and checks it, I think on the 6th day of every month, I think it is.
Roughly. Yeah. That's why we're going to update the dashboard, because now we're getting so efficient at it. It might be sooner.
Yeah. So every once a month or however often it does it, it's telling you this house has a non-deliverable address, which means don't mail it for number one. 2, pick up the daggone phone and find out the owner and call them and say, listen, I noticed your house was vacant.
Yeah.
So it's just brain. If you don't at least give it a try, and because are you locked into 12 months of this? If you sign up?
I'm sorry, it broke up a little bit there.
Are you locked into 12 months if you sign up for this software?
No, month by month, and we give a 30-day money-back guarantee when you start. So if you sign up and don't like it, so cancel. We don't care.
It's $100.
We don't think you would.
Yeah, it's $100, no upfront, and if you don't like it in 30 days, you ask for your money back. I mean, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. And live customer support, private Facebook group, why it's evolved to where it is now. Like we have all kinds of, we have skip tracing in there. We have, click a button to send your mail. We're actually adding phone append, email append, and do not call scrubbing to the fulfillment center, all because of requests from users.
So your software is just going to become the one place stop shop for what you need.
It's going to be your central database to manage all of your lists and do all of your marketing.
And that's awesome. And here's the thing. It doesn't stop there. You have another thing, Investor, was it PO or Investor PO?
Yeah, IPO for short. But Investor
IPO.
PO.
Yeah, Investor PO. Now, explain to me more in depth what that is in the audience on kind of what that software is about.
Yeah, so that's my passion, right? That's how I ended up doing Property List Manager with Joseph, because Joseph tried for a year to build something and all the tech people failed. I had already been building Investor PO for over a year. Mm-hmm. Essentially what happened is when I moved to Tampa, I wanted to build out and it started with Podio. Right, a lot of people get Podio. I got Podio, and then I went down the rabbit hole of, well, it needs to do more. I've been told it can do things, and paying thousands here and thousands there, and getting it to do stuff. And then my ultimate goal was, I realized at some point, like, this thing can manage my whole business, and it can allow me to venture into multiple markets, but I can control all of the marketing flow from the point that somebody contacts my business all the way through to closing it. And whether it's turnkey, wholesale, whatever I do with it, I can manage that entire process all in one place and stop having all these 10 different places that I'm logging into, right? Like I got to get a call tracking through CallRail. I got to get DocuSign or write signature so I can do documents. I got to get a text thing so I can text people because that works. And I got to have VAs that can do follow-up to make sure I'm not forgetting about leads that go cold or don't answer, right? And I need all, ringless voicemail now, so I need to drop voice drops, and I got to get a MailChimp or some other type of email account so I can send emails, and everything's all over the place, right? So we built out Podio, like tens of thousands of dollars spent in building Podio that worked for us. And then I joined a very elite mastermind. And the first meeting I went to, you have to give something. You have to share something that's unique about what you do when you go there, right? So I shared a part of what we were doing for ourselves. And mind you, we tore down, rebuilt, and rebuilt Podio probably 4 different times until we ended up with what was very efficient and worked. And I was able to get rid of, I think, 3 different VAs we eliminated because we automated all their jobs. Mm-hmm. In that, someone the whole mastermind was like, how are you doing what you just said you're doing? Like, we can't get our Podio to do that. I'm like, I don't know. I have an amazing tech guy. And it was all built on the idea that I wanted to franchise our name, so to speak, or affiliate in different markets and be able to control all the marketing and see all the numbers, right? A high level overview. So I built it for myself, truthfully. I had no intention of being a software guy. And then after that mastermind, probably half the mastermind came and approached me and said, how do we get that in our business? Because that doesn't exist. And we've asked people to build that and they can't. So, okay, I didn't realize there was such a need. I went back to my tech guy who built it and said, how would we do this for them? And he said, well, that's easy. They're just different businesses. You built it to duplicate your own business. Just think of them as your own business, but with their name on it. I'm like, oh, okay. So I started down that road. 3 months into that, we started doing custom builds for people. We built out their Podio based off of ours. And then I didn't like that because I realized I couldn't help as many people that way, because you're talking an $8,000 to $10,000 price tag to fully build out a whole custom system with everything you need to make it work, right? Because you still got to integrate all these things, right? And stuff can break, so then you need support. So either you got to know how to do it or you got to pay us. It was January last year. I had flew out to San Diego, sat down with some tech people, and they convinced me that with what we had built, we were missing the boat, that not only this could help real estate investors, this could be a system that could help anybody in sales with the way we built the software. But we needed to take it off of Podio. This had to be way bigger than just a Podio thing. So I got the price tag.
Expensive.
And the time. Yeah. I got the price tag and the time frame, which was, hey, in 3 months we could launch something for everybody, and here's your price tag. Well, as we talked earlier, right? Software is more than double that in money and more than double that in time.
Yep.
And because we ran into things like Podio, Globoflow got bought by Podio, and we were building with some of those pieces, would use some of those pieces, just decided that, nope, we are building something that is completely ours, our own platform. And we went into beta using Podio as a backend just to prove a concept, right? Like, let's just launch right now with Podio still being a part of our platform, so we make sure that this isn't just something that I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on. It was just a great idea for me and a few friends, right? So we launched into beta, and it just blew up. People were like, "This is the most amazing thing. There is no CRM like this." And so we went into beta Q4 of last year. And then we technically launched to the public in January. We don't even market yet. We're about to, but we haven't put any real marketing behind it. It's all been word of mouth. We've grown to over 100 users. And it's same thing as PLM. We constantly make it more efficient and better. We constantly develop new things. And again, we built our own platform that does everything, right? So it is the only true all-in-one that I know of. All your KPIs are automatically tracked into your dashboard. You don't need CallRail. You don't need a DocuSign. You don't need a text system. You don't need an email system. You don't need a ringless voicemail system. You don't need a Zapier account. You don't need Globoflow. Literally in today's version, all you need is a basic Podio account, not the one with Globoflow or anything in it, because we don't use any of that stuff. And then literally you register your account, and in 5 minutes, the system builds itself and builds out both of your workspaces in Podio, connects it back to our platform. So our platform can do everything, because our platform does all your automatic emails to buyers, sellers, and any other contact. We socially profile every single lead, which is actually probably one of the sexiest, coolest things we got, like pulls in everything about you. We automatically text from a local number. We have all your call tracking built into the system. You don't need another system to do it. It's there. Ringless voicemail drops everybody, and all of it's automated. All the content's there. All of it's done. E-signatures built in.
That just sounds like a Lamborghini.
Yeah, it is.
How can
and I got the price tag to prove it.
I bet you do.
I could have bought a Lamborghini.
Man,
now that you mention it, I could have had a nice Lamborghini for what's invested so far.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing next. But anyways, we're not going to stay on that topic. How could people, find this software since you're not publicly marketing it yet?
We have a website. You can actually give them a link for that too.
Okay.
When I say not publicly, we're just not spending
marketing dollars
right now.
Got
right?
it. So you're growing word of mouth.
Some marketing. Yeah, we're testing some marketing, and then we're gonna dump money into it.
That's awesome, because word of mouth is really word of mouth is usually the best one out there. What does something like this cost a user every month?
Right now, it's only $197 a month, and it includes everything.
Yeah, and I'm paying that right now for something that doesn't sound like a Lamborghini.
No, most everything out there, and I know every competitor out there, right? So, or so-called competitor. Most of them are going to cost you the same at a basic level, but then you also need to integrate 2 or 3 things to make it do what ours does.
Yeah.
And you have to buy credits in order to make anything happen. So included in your 197 is everything works, and it already includes automated messages, emails, text, call tracking numbers, ringless voicemail drops, one-off postcards are built in too for, it's all the automated follow-up you can think of is there. It automatically comps 3 different comps that come in and average it out. I mean, I could go on and on. It does a lot.
Yeah, that's crazy. So
they can see everything.
I haven't checked it out, but I'm going to. My call rail bill is more than that every month, by the way.
Yeah.
I do a lot. I have a lot of numbers in call rail. I track every single thing, and we do outbound on call rail, which is not advised. Don't do outbound on call rail. It's going to cost you a lot of money.
We just offered, I'll share it on here. It's in beta right now to our users, but we just offered an outbound Chrome extension added to our software. So now you can actually click a button to call out or text from the system, and it automatically picks up which campaign they came from and calls them or texts them from that campaign.
Wow, that's useful to call them from this or text them from the same number they already seen.
Yeah,
that's cool. Man, this has been a long one. This has been a good one though. I've gained, and that's why I tell people these podcasts. I don't have preset questions. I'm literally I'm writing down when you talked about Turnkey. I'm learning as you're talking along with my listeners. So I just love this style of podcast. But let's get back to like wholesaling, and let's kind of put yourself years ago when you started and with the information you know now. If you had to talk to somebody for 60 seconds in an elevator and give them the best advice you could getting into the wholesaling business, what would you tell them? And your time is ticking now. You got 60 seconds.
YouTube, bigger pockets, REI groups locally, all your best friends. Free material, free information, anything that you need to know, you don't necessarily need to buy, right? It's available. Save any money that you're going to spend on that stuff and spend it on some sort of marketing. I don't care if it's bandit signs. I don't care if it's joining the local REIA group. And by the way, when you go to those groups and say they don't work, that's just because you didn't hang out for the meeting after the meeting.
Yeah.
Because the people that do real estate are in those groups and they usually meet after the meeting.
Correct.
You need to tell everyone around you in those groups, socially, Facebook, everywhere, that you are looking to buy houses. Don't fear working with other wholesalers, because there are other wholesalers that if you can go find a deal, that's the most important part in this market, is finding a deal. My first deal was from a relative whose grandmother went into a nursing home and they needed to get rid of the house. That was my first deal ever. And it was literally because I told everyone I was going to do real estate. So just tell people that you want to do real estate, that you buy and sell houses, and keep doing that, and deals will come your way. And you just got to keep taking action in that. Action, 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 action. Stop thinking, stop reading. Action, action, action. And you'll learn. You're right. You'll learn, find a deal, and somebody will teach you how to do it.
Awesome. So listen, this has been a treat. I'm glad we're able to, this is the first time we brought on people that own software, and I'm glad it's something that I use. Anything I put on the podcast, I co-sign it because I use it. I'm going to check out the Investor PO. But I use the property list manager every day. My VA manages that part of it. It's awesome. I love it. Thanks for the wise words to our listeners. And is there anywhere they can find you, like on social media? Are you socially active at all?
Yeah, I'm very active. Where Robert Seifert. You look up me or any of the company names you just mentioned, they'll find me. But I'm very active on my personal page.
Perfect. So yeah, J-Rock will put it somewhere in here, edited wise. But cool, man. Thanks, Robert, for being on the podcast. I really appreciate it. And thanks for the wise words to these young investors, new investors, or even, seasoned investors that just get stuck in their old ways. You brought some new things to them that they can help improve their business, reduce the money you're spending and increase the deal flow, or just reduce the money you're spending and making the same amount of deals. It feels a hell of a lot funner in this business.
Great to keep more money.
That's it. So, Robert, I appreciate it, and I think if you're going to be in Charlotte coming up, I'll see you. I'll see you then.
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Wholesaling Houses Elite podcast with Maxwell. Make sure to tune in next week to see what elite wholesaler will have in the hot seat.